We're not trying to fool people into thinking the space looks differently. What we're really trying to do is just kind of bring back some of that image quality that was lost by using, a product that lets you, snap photos quicker.
At some point, your enhancement is going to get so good, you cannibalize the business of like sending out, I guess, the professionals using the higher end equipment.
We've always been in the green. We've always been cash flow positive, but just being able to support our growth and seeing our payroll kind of raise month over month, that was definitely stressful. Yeah.
All right, welcome to the Digible Dudes podcast. I'm David.
I'm Reid.
Shoot, Reid. Usually I have an anecdote that I'm gonna hit you with, but I don't have one. Do you have one?
Definitely not.
Okay. Well, there
let's
you
just
go.
Jump into it.
Let's go into the episode.
I mean, the anecdote that we got, but it's not yours, was just a terrific backstory on how the two Toms met, from LC3P. I love that you asked that question.
Thank you.
And although it wasn't what I was expecting, because I've already heard some fun stories about Leasing, it was really endearing to hear, how the two came together. So
it's so on this episode we have how did he pronounce his last name?
Chomiak, I think.
I'm
going with it.
Actually, you should be good at this. Did we tell the story when we had the other Leasing on that you had to do all the Polish names? That's your anecdote.
Yeah.
Reid is an expert at Polish names. Hit us, Reid.
Far from it. More like Reid is scarred by Polish names. Because the very first sales gig I ever had was selling for what I believe now is a very corrupt telemarketing company or agency, trying to sell different packages of cable, like HBO 4 and 6, that day. I don't think that exists anymore. I think now they just have it back to like Max and regular. I don't even know if it's now one. But anyways, I had to follow a very specific script. In these calls, I would have a supervisor literally over my shoulder, making sure that I was following the script, to see if I could get him to sign up for HBO 5 and 6. And I got the good fortune of having a zip code of primarily Polish last names. And as I put it, I think I blogged about this, but it was like a scrambled version of Schlotsky's every call. And then the worst part of it is the script, as a way of building rapport, forced you to use their name over and over. And so I almost never got it right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And very few of them had the patience to correct me. And so I would just butcher it multiple times until they would yell a few things at me and hang up. So yeah.
So
far from an expert.
Back then, so it sounds like back then they didn't have Gong or whatever. So that's
no.
The
Gong was
manager.
the supervisor sitting all over my back.
And if you if you screwed up a name, would he even allow you to because now it's we ad lib a lot. If we were doing sales, we'd get
there was no ad libbing.
Right.
No.
So if you screwed it up and they're it's not Schlotsky, it's Leasing.
Yeah. And then it was until I offended them enough, could I even act like a human? Where they were finally you got it wrong, stop, it's this. And then I might be able to be a human for about 30 seconds before I was supposed to be right back on script.
It's funny because you and I get blown up with telemarketers for
business funding.
And they're like, hey, Digible, are you still looking for that $200,000 line of credit or something? And I'm like, no, not for years. And I'm still not offended when they say Digible. That's funny. It's I just don't care. But I guess if it was your actual name, it might.
Yeah, it might be different.
Yeah. So, anyways, we have Tom on, and he's their CTO. And he's been there 11 years, and he was talking about his experience at the company, the things they've built, and we get into how they're leveraging machine learning, also AI for their technology. What else do we hit?
Well, what's going on? I was about to say too broad, but a little bit with their competition, their differentiators. I think there were some good distinctions that he drew between them and Matterport, which he was totally comfortable talking about. Where they're headed, the biggest challenges, you asked him that, as far as kind of obstacles with the business. That's as far as I can go.
Yeah.
It was a great conversation, though.
Great.
He's so gregarious. I don't know that he described himself that way, but not to stigma or stereotype, but not every CTO is comfortable, well spoken as Tom was. So yeah, he's a great ambassador for tech leadership in the industry.
He really is. I was saying offline when we were waiting for his file to upload to him that it's like, man, they really do like keep you away from clients or whatever. Cause like we've now seen Leasac at like, I don't know, 10 or 12 conferences, and you had met this Tom once, and I was like, why don't you get out more? Cause I feel that he actually represents really well, explains what they do really well. And also to me would build a lot of confidence. Like there are sometimes you want to keep your tech leaders, they're just more awkward socially. I mean, again, we're going generalization here, and he does not give that vibe at all. Instead, it's like, wow, like I feel like it's probably really quality technology behind the scenes. Like, so
Yeah,
you should use them more.
yeah. Far from Ruprecht, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, if you know the reference.
Oh no.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry to
man,
let you
that
down on that
was
one.
so clutch. I hope that a few people out there listening got that and got a chuckle out of it.
I gotta go back
Really disappointed in
because
David right now.
I do know the movie, but I don't remember the guy. Oh, you brought him up actually on a prior episode, didn't you?
It's yeah, Steve Martin's character.
Okay.
He wears the eye patch and
I
like
know
hits his
exactly. I
face
know
with
exactly what you're talking about now.
the cork on the fork.
This is you gave
He's
me this.
kept in the basement.
Yeah,
and like he slaps pans together. It's like that.
Yeah.
That's who you keep in the basement.
Yeah,
Tom-
you had assigned me this homework like a year ago, and I did watch that movie. Oh
Yeah,
my god!
yeah.
Well, thank you
All right,
for
all right.
reminding me. But yes, at the very end of the episode, as you started to mention, we get how he and Leasac met. So if you know Tom Leasac, you need to at least listen to the end so that you can then give him a hard time about how they met.
Yeah.
Or a good time.
Or a heart emoji.
Yeah. One or the other. All right. Well, we hope you guys enjoy. Okay, we're here with Tom. Tom, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Tom Chomiak. I'm the CTO at LCP Media. I'm also the creator of Panoskin, now known as TourBuilder.
Yeah. Well, one fun fact is you are also Tom Lysak's best friend, or is it Leasac? Is it Lysac?
It's Leasac, yes.
Leasac.
We've been best friends since about 6 years of age.
Yeah. So anybody that's been in this industry and been to a conference has probably bumped into Tom, that Tom, at some point. It's funny because I just know him as Tom, and now you're my second Tom in the industry. But that's why I never try to pronounce Tom Leasac's last name.
At the very least, they've heard his voice.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They may not have been in close proximity, but you don't need to be, just to know Tom.
Yeah,
from afar.
Totally. All right. Well, this Tom, yeah, what got you into multifamily, and what have you been doing since you got here?
Yeah, so really my journey into multifamily started about 11 years ago. So my buddy Tom and another time actually, a few buddies from college started this company called LCP 360. And originally they were shooting photos and still photos for multifamily. And they reached out to me. I was a software engineer at the time and said, hey, Chomiak, we've got this idea for building virtual tours. Can you come along and build this as platform? And that was about 11 years ago today, where I built the first version of our platform. Was called Panoskin at the time. It's now known as TourBuilder.
You actually, the first vendor I ever met in this space was actually LCP 360, and we were at, I guess it would have been 9 years ago. Yeah, in San Antonio at Graystar's Marketing Masters, one of their early ones. And I remember, it sounds like now you guys all go by last name. So Leasac was running around passing out those the Google cardboard. Yeah,
it was for the augmented, or
yeah.
I don't know if it was
You
augmented.
like stuck your phone in there and it would like do a 3D, like an Oculus or something, but via a piece of cardboard.
It's very popular at the conference.
Super popular.
They got a big kick out of that.
And so it sounds like that would have been right after you joined, and that would have been like one of the early versions of Panoskin. Is that right?
Exactly. And the reason why we go by last name, by the way, is because at one point we had about 5 or 6 Toms at our company. So it got really confusing. I remember being on a call with a client once, and there was like 6 Toms, and it was so that's why we go by last name.
That's crazy because you guys, it's not like you have 1,000 employees, so
right.
A little less likely. That's funny.
My cover letter when I'm applying the LCP 360 is be like, I will change my name to Tom. Please hire me.
Exactly. Or you have a Tom in the family.
Yeah. Well, Tom, I've been very curious about this because when we were at that first event 9 years ago, they were all about Panoskin this, Panoskin that. When did you guys make the change from Panoskin to TourBuilder? And Why?
Oh boy. I think that was, and I don't want my marketing team to scold me on this. So take this with a grain of salt, but I believe it was about 2 years ago when we made the name change. And really the reason for it is we wanted something that kind of resonated a little bit better with what it is that we do. So Panoskin made a lot of sense to photographers, like anyone that shot photography, they knew what a panorama is, and like this, the skin was like this layer of tooling around it, but it didn't really make sense to everybody else. So we wanted to come up with a brand name that made a little bit more sense. And after some searching, we came up with TourBuilder. And what made it hard is we wanted to have the .com as well. And actually, fun fact, TourBuilder.com used to be owned by Google. It used to be actually a piece of software used for Google Earth, but they sunset that. I think it was July 2020. So we ended up picking up the name and picking up the domain name, and now we're TourBuilder.com.
Oh wow! So wait a minute. Now I gotta.
That is a fun fact.
Sell it to you, or did they let it die off or go away?
They just let it die off, and one of those, domain, those guys out there, they're scraping for domains that expired, pick them up. And, we had to pay a pretty penny for it, but probably not as much as if we had to buy it from Google or one of those bigger tech companies.
We had to pay I think it's $3,500 for Digible.com.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Somewhere in there.
Did you pay more than $3,500?
We did. It was definitely north of that. We don't want to talk about that, but yeah.
It's funny because that is a name that I feel like I'd want to sell. But when you're the size of Google, you're like, is this worth our effort to try to sell this domain? And you just like, whatever, let it go. All right. Well, give us the elevator pitch for those that don't know LCP, and then I want to talk to you a little bit about, as you were saying, that network of photographers.
Yeah, sure. So LCP Media, we're a digital agency. We work with some of the largest ownership and management groups in multifamily. We provide our clients everything from still photography, 3D renderings to virtual tours. But what we're best known for is our software platform that's called TourBuilder. And that is a virtual tour platform that we built right around the time that Google Street View started.
Excellent. You caught me mid-sip. When was there any connection between Street View, meaning like they started doing that and then you started, or did you guys like independently have this idea about like doing these virtual tours, and then that just happened that Google was also launching Street View?
Yeah, so we were doing it independently. We were doing kind of like bigger venues, so it wasn't multifamily. We were going to like Allstate Arena and like different like a McCormick Place, like convention centers, and just trying to do big venues, interior spaces. And so around that time, Google was basically shooting the streets. And they wanted to start what they call this is a see inside program, where they can, from the street, go inside of hotels. And what they really quickly realized is that it's a lot easier to take a camera, strap it to your car, and drive down the road than it is to deal with individual photographers and having to call the on-site staff and schedule. And that's when they started looking around for people that could help. And we were actually we were the only virtual tour company in the United States. So like Matterport, for example, I'm sure a lot of viewers are familiar with them. They didn't exist, and we were around back then. Kind of dabbling with these virtual tours. So, and they reached out to us, and we started working with them, and that's where we kind of got our start, was with the hotel program. Now, initially, though, when we started working with them, they had us using their software. But it wasn't what you would expect from Google. It was extremely finicky. This thing would go down all the time. I remember we were doing this huge virtual tour of a hotel called Hilton Chicago, and it was like 500 or 600 scenes. And I remember the client reaching out to us and saying, "Hey, Tom, I need one of these scenes changed. Put this one in instead." And it wasn't like you could just log in somewhere and make the change. We actually had to send an email to Google. They took the entire tour down, and then we had to build it all in one session all over again. So just a really just terrible experience for us building those tours. And that's really what also kind of prompted us to build our virtual tour platform out even more, right? And to work with Google Street View.
So I remember for a while, it felt like your guys' marketing was like, oh, we could help from Street View. You walk straight into the property. yada yada yada. And I think that's a really interesting ICR. But also, I was thinking, like, what's the value of that? Like, how many people are going to go from Street View and then like walk into the property? That said, it sounds like this partnership with Google is more integrated than I understood before. Like, if at the beginning they were providing the software, then you guys eventually were like, your stuff stinks, so we're going to go ahead and make our own, and we're going to make this our focus. So I guess my question here is, what besides, like, because we're a Google partner, and I'm going to put that in air quotes, because almost anyone that runs Google paid ads has some sort of partnership with Google. Now there's different levels, but really, I think they're all kind of but not super valuable. This is my personal
a great
opinion.
job of devaluing our partnership with Google.
Yeah. Like, come on, bring it, Google. Come at me and tell me why it's worth it. Why I should care. But for you guys, did that help more for early traction, or they would like pass you guys clients for like that would help give you revenue? Were they covering revenue? I'm just really curious, like, because it sounds very different than what my personal experience has been.
Yeah, it definitely helped initially. They were sending work our way. And I remember early on we were working with Marriott. But really where we started kind of getting our footing was within multifamily. When we started entering that space, which by the way, Google initially was against because they don't want residential real estate, on Google Maps. But we basically convinced them that, we're not going to shoot individual units and put them up on Google Maps. We're going to shoot basically common amenities and maybe model units. So when we started doing that, that's really where we kind of just we started growing our company is when we got into multifamily.
That's fascinating. Wow, so many places to go. But Reid, I should let you get in before I'm just going to bogart this thing, because I find the history interesting.
I'm in a half food coma, so it's okay if you decide to bogart today. I'm just gonna let you know that, and Tom.
We did get barbecue right before this, and Reid told me ahead of barbecue, he's like, "This is going to put me right into a catatonic state." So
Yeah.
he knew what he was doing to himself.
Yep. Just hashtag acknowledgement. But um, I'm curious, and this could take you a whole nother direction, but on product development. So the TourBuilder Go transition or evolution of Panoskin, but how you guys have approached that. So I don't know, Tom, if you fill more of a CPTO role there, or if there is some segmentation, within the company. Um, on product versus engineering. We're experiencing this ourselves right now, not meaning in a bad way, but just, the importance of those two working together and how you go about product discovery, which problems you're trying to solve. And it seems to me that you guys have built such a cozy relationship, and this compliment with the industry. You guys have tremendous relationships, and Tom, meaning the fourth Tom or the second Tom or the first Tom, Lisa, is such a big part of that. That you guys get a lot of unsolicited feedback, which is a great place to be. You're constantly hearing from your clients about, what they're looking for, how it could be better. But could you just, I guess, organize that conversation a little bit, or that part of the business? How have you guys gone about product development?
Sure. Yeah. So, just being a smaller company, we wear a lot of hats, right? And when I say small, relatively to the larger tech companies, we're at about 100 employees now. But so, we all wear a lot of hats. Everyone kind of has a voice in our company. We certainly get a lot of feedback from sales. We do have a VP of product. We do have someone that's actually managing our product roadmap. But we get feedback from a number of areas. We get feedback from our sales team. We get feedback from our customer success team. We get feedback at conferences. And one of the benefits of being a smaller business is we're very agile, right? So we've got a great engineering team, and we're able to kind of react to what we're hearing from our clients. So and we like to keep them involved. Anytime that we start some type of new product initiative, what we normally do is we create some wireframes, and then we reach out to some of our clients. Anyone that's willing to listen, give us the time. Hop on calls with them, show them the wireframes, ask them questions, what they think of this, would this help their business, and then just let the ideas flow. Another thing, you and I, we kind of discussed this earlier, is like I myself am renting now at a Greystar managed property, and I haven't done that in like 7 or 8 years, and that to me has been like an eye opener. So you mentioned like TourBuilder Go, and there's a lot of things that I've kind of learned like through that experience. that have kind of opened up opportunities and ideas of where we should be taking our product next.
Yeah, and feel free to share just a little bit of that experience that you had and where you see some opportunities. And I have to say, when we were talking offline about it, it surprised me that you hadn't already heard that, because it seems like such a no-brainer. So hopefully, we do see some of those gaps that you mentioned. You guys close in on that and bring some really cool new features to the product. But yeah, do you want to share just a little bit of where you saw identified some gaps or opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like on a very high level, and I think our clients see us this way too. Is we've always been seen as our virtual tours have been seen as kind of getting people to the door, right? Getting people to the property, and also creating more qualified leads. Educated folks. They know what the property looks like. They know they want to rent there. So our tool has been very good at that, and I think our clients, and I've always seen our tool as that, right, kind of front of the funnel. What was kind of an aha moment for me when I went through this renting experience is, I did an out of state move. So it wasn't like I could just drive around, for a month looking for properties. I actually had to take a flight down and move to Florida. So I took a flight down for 2-3 days, and I used our virtual tours to kind of identify the properties that I wanted to go look at. I identified 6 properties. And then from there, what was kind of eye-opener for me is that at the end of looking at 6 buildings where I saw multiple units at every building, my brain was just like a mush. And my wife's too. We didn't remember what unit had the stainless steel appliances, because you look at multiple units at each building, and the only follow-up email that I got from property management was a thank you for visiting this property. Here's a floor plan and some pricing. And I can tell you that did not help us at all. So we ended up flying back to Chicago more confused than we started. And we basically had to fly down to Florida again, and not only could do that, to take a look at some of these properties. And that's when I came in with the camera and I just started recording videos of the units, and just to kind of help me jog my memory and make a better decision of where we want to live for the next year. And this really put a light bulb on in my head is, what a perfect place to get a virtual tour, and a virtual tour of a unit would have been in that follow-up email. When the property manager was reaching out to me, thanking me for taking a look at their property, I would have loved to have had a virtual tour there of the units that I saw. So that was one light bulb. Another light bulb was when I came back the second time, I really wanted to take a look at one of the townhomes, and they were going to be available, in 2 weeks, but they had nothing that was vacant for me to see. So again, all they could show me was floor plans, and if they had a virtual tour of that townhome unit, that the property staff could have showed it to me on their computer, and that would have made a world of difference for me. So now when I think of our virtual tours, it's basically the entire funnel. I think of it front of funnel. It should be used at the leasing center, and also as follow-up tools to kind of just seal the deal and get people to lease.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. I'll let David.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to lose this one, Tom. But what has been the most challenging part of building the company over this decade for you? Meaning, I get scared when you say, I don't know if you said it on air yet, but you said you guys have 40,000 photographers around the globe that you work with, and I know from talking with Leasing before, he said you guys had vetted the good ones, and the ones that weren't so good, you removed them, and so on and so forth. So that scares me. But also, I feel like the technology sounds, if you guys are the only ones doing it when Google started, that must have been that would have been challenging for me. Just how do we invent this new thing? I'm not good with visuals. That's why I'm not in graphic design or whatever. I'm doesn't look good. Yeah, that looks great. Right. That's the kind of feedback I can give. It's kind of like Reid and I had a private sushi, event I don't know, a month ago or so, and they were the chef was like, hey, this is you're the second people I've ever made this for. What's your feedback? And I said, add salt. And Reid basically was like, shut up, David, let me tell you, buddy, what you should do for this thing. So anyways, what's the most challenging what has been the most challenging part?
Yeah, well, so I mean, we're everything's been challenging in terms of our technology. We have some of the stuff that we build is cutting edge stuff. These virtual experiences that really, if it comes down to our technology, there's only 2 real players, Matterport and Google Street View, that have very similar technology to ours. And it's so obviously building that piece, and we built it from the ground up. By the way, we didn't use any libraries or things like that. We built our view and everything from the ground up. So lots of challenges around that. We're doing a lot with AI, computer vision, a lot of challenging. But with those challenges comes excitement. We've built a great engineering team that's genuinely excited about what they work on. But if you ask me like what's kept me up at night these past 11 years, it's not really the challenges and kind of adapting to markets and things like that. It's been more, we're a bootstrap company, so we've never like raised money, things like that. So like that's kept me up at night, especially initially in the earlier stages of our company. But yeah, so I guess I don't know if that answers your question. So.
Well, I love it. Lisak and I have had a couple of late night conversations, including most recently in Napa, where he was talking about some of this. So I appreciate you sharing it. We are also bootstrapped and hadn't raised, and for the first, I don't know, I feel like it was year 5 maybe when we turned a corner, and it was like I didn't have to worry like how are we going to make payroll or whatnot. So at what point did that happen for you? Meaning for me, it was we had to have been. I think we needed to be profitable for like a year before I was like, okay, this isn't a fluke, and cash flow positive basically for that time too. So, when were you emotionally able to let go of that,
Oh
or
boy.
have you not?
No. Well, it's always the back of your head, but no, we're definitely in a way better place than we were when we first started the company. But it's I'd probably say like year 3 into it. When we started offering benefits to our staff, I think that's when we kind of felt like we made it. We've always been in the green. We've always been cash flow positive, but just being able to support our growth and seeing our payroll kind of raise month over month, that was definitely stressful. But I think like year 3 or 4 when we got into it, I definitely felt a lot more confident. We had a very good footing in multifamily, commercial real estate. Our network grew to about 40,000 photographers. So definitely felt a lot better about it then than I did, initially going into it. So
Yeah. Reed, I didn't get to tell you this yet, but I just thought it was interesting. I was listening to this interview. It was on NPR, and it was this fella saying, "Hey, here's how I've been able to provide childcare for all of our employees." So he's a coffee roaster with 50 employees, and they've had childcare since I think the second year of the business. And so they were just saying, "Here's the good and the bad of it." And I just thought of it when Tom said, "Hey, maybe when we start able to provide benefits, we're in a better spot." They asked him like, "Hey, would you do it again?" And he was like, "I would, but maybe I would have waited until we were profitable, cash flow positive before I opened the daycare, and just focused on the coffee at first." And I feel like that was kind of us in the beginning. We're like, we're going to go ahead and give benefits to everybody. We're going to do like all these things. It's like, maybe we should get profitable first. So
Yeah.
just
But
wanted to share that
it
with you.
does attract talent, and you need a company to build talent, or you need a talent to build a company.
Totally. Yeah.
I'm wondering if we can. You mentioned also offline just about AI, and we all know it's trending to the point. We had a podcast talked about retcon and my now allergy to AI. At least when I see it in the session, or the headline of a session, because I think it is still very misunderstood. It's overhyped probably. David has had some interesting kind of takes on it. Um, Mainly for me, like he's just like, how much does it matter? Even isn't it just about the outcome, not necessarily about the technology? But it's so marketable. It is completely taken over. And frankly, I think this industry, multifamily, that you just can't avoid it. So I'm curious to open up that can of worms, I'll say, with you, Tom, and hear a little of your perspective and experience with it. You clearly are doing some really, it sounds like, innovative applications of it with your own tech. So yeah, let's open up that door of AI, and I will go ahead and let you think on this as you're explaining, because you seem like that kind of guy that can, multi-think.
He's multi-threaded.
Yeah. But is OpenAI itself, so this is not just the buzzword of AI, but the company, friend or foe at this point in how you're thinking, how you see them, given what they're doing with video and what you guys are doing with video, and what that may mean for new competitors coming into multifamily, trying to get a piece of this apple that you clearly have bitten pretty deep into already. So start with just some general sentiments on AI, maybe a few examples, applications that you guys have used it for, and then if you could wrap up with just telling me your thoughts on OpenAI and where or how that may disrupt the industry.
Yeah, sure. Well, so to start OpenAI, I definitely see it as friend, not foe. But what I really thought I kind of start with is just the elephant in the room. Anytime I talk to somebody, just whether it's a bar, they ask me about AI. I get a number of questions. First, what is AI? It's this buzzword that you don't just hear in multifamily; you're really hearing it everywhere. And then, second to that, I always get, am I going to lose my job to AI? Is AI going to kill everybody and take over the world? Elon Musk is obviously famous for sharing some of his concerns about AI. So I get those questions a lot. First of all, what is AI? It's obviously it's a buzzword, everybody's heard, but in the most simplest definition of it, it's artificial intelligence. So it's basically technology that enables computers to simulate human intelligence and just solve problems, right? So at a very high level, if you take a look at AI researchers, they're basically studying kind of two buckets. One bucket, and this is the AI that you're really seeing in multifamily, you're seeing everywhere, but honestly, is what's called machine learning. And then the other bucket is called AGI, or artificial general intelligence. And the AGI, that's where you kind of get, is AI going to take over the world type of discussions, right? But AGI is not here yet. There are some folks working on it. There are some estimates that it's years, maybe even decades away. What is here today is machine learning. Machine learning is basically it's how computers recognize patterns with data. So you use this data to kind of just train these computers to make decisions, right? Without the computer being explicitly programmed to perform certain functions. So rather than when you wrote traditional programs, you'd give it step-by-step instructions on, hey, do this if this happens. Instead, you're giving a computer a bunch of data, right? And you're learning it through just trial and error and practice. Very similar to how just kind of children kind of learn effectively. So with what we're doing, for example, we captured tons of images, right? And I think north of 270 million scenes have been published through our tour to Google Maps. So we're taking a lot of those images and we're downscaling some of them purposefully, and we're training these neural nets where we're giving them, pairs of images, some that are, very high quality DSLR and some that have been downscaled. And we're training it effectively to where if we give it a downscaled image, maybe it's an image that was taken by a phone or taken with a one-shot camera, when it goes through our neural net, the neural net will basically auto-correct and auto-enhance that image to look better. So that's sort of one area. And and whether you know it or not, a lot of people are using ML just in their lives. When you're if your email filters, for example, chances are they're using AI, right? Especially if you're using Gmail. The text recognition is within your cell phone. That's being used by AI. So it's kind of all over the place at this point, whether you know it or not. Even Google searches or video recommendations, things like that. That's all powered by AI. And that AI is machine learning. So again, that's where you take algorithms and you train them for a very specific purpose. So those are more seen as tools, right? That we as marketers can use as tools within our tool belt. So it won't take over the world. It's something that's meant to basically enhance your day to day, enhance your job. That being said, the second question I kind of get is, is it going to take over my job? So like I mentioned, AI is a tool. So just like a knife is a tool, you can use a knife to, prepare a 5-course meal. You could also use a knife to stab someone, right? So if it comes down to you using AI, you want to use it responsibly, And what do I mean by that? You could use AI to detect diseases in X-rays, for example. That's a good use of it. A bad use of it may be to use AI in defensive weapons and letting it make autonomous decisions. It's probably not a good idea. At that point, you're playing with fire. So, but yeah. So I don't know if that's a good introduction to what AI is and how I kind of see it, but
yeah, no, it helps. You mentioned that we're not there yet with the general AI. You didn't hit specifically generative, so make sure there's a distinction there. We're not talking about the same thing necessarily, and that you started by saying open AI friend, not foe. It seems like some of the things they're doing with video could be pretty disruptive to the industry and even your business. So I'm wondering, do you see what they're doing right now with the video and the generative AI as still machine learning, or is that is that kind of first stage or second stage of the more general AI that you say is coming?
No, it's still machine learning because I mean we're effectively doing the same stuff with our algorithms. When we're taking these images, we're not full on generating like new art or deep fakes or things like that, but we are taking images and basically upscaling the quality. So we are generating a higher quality image. When I talk about AGI, this is more like a kind of like sentient artificial intelligence that isn't just trained to do one thing and one thing well, right? It's more of kind of like just a general purpose intelligence. That's what I mean by AGI when I say that.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for clarifying.
Really, when I want to distinguish, so when I said friend or foe, wasn't really taking it in the context of my company. I was taking it in the context of just the world, right? So, they're not working on something that's destructive. They're working on tools that can help and assist people. So,
yeah, that makes sense. I think that there's a lot that startups, entrepreneurs are seeing that ChatGPT or OpenAI, with what they've done is shortcutting some of the things that have been done, by other startups, as far as building kind of the foundation and frameworks of some of this piping and engineering. It's like, oh, now I don't have to do any of that work because they've already done it. So I'll just build on top of that. And we did hear out at Retcon more and more, I'll say, disclosures about that, where it's like, yeah, this is not all of our technology. We're enhancing what now OpenAI has brought to the world. And therefore I could see a proliferation of startups, related to digital creative, whether it's in the form of, content, meaning text, or whether it's in the form of video, because they don't have to do the heavy lifting now. So they're just looking to leverage that. And I don't fault them for it, but it could be pretty disruptive. And that's why I was connecting a little bit to, where you guys are at and what your roadmap might look like. So just sharing a little more of where that was coming from, that question.
Tom, who's to blame for okay, who's to blame? Okay, now I'll set it up. I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, we had our first Digible summit where we, brought people in just to do our thought leadership stuff. And we had Professor Beaver, who is over at the
EU.
yeah, but Daniels
Yeah, Daniels Business School.
yeah. Anyways, he deals with machine learning, AI, all that stuff, and he did a session then on machine learning versus AI, like the different types. Okay, I'm mentioning it because even before we had him present at the summit, I was often hearing companies say like, "Oh, we're using machine learning for this. We're using natural language for that." However, in the last 5 years, somehow, someone, this is who's to blame, has co-opted everything and just been like, "It's all AI." Versus like in the past 5 years ago, when I was hearing people talk about AI, they were really talking about AGI, so the artificial general intelligence. So is it you technologists, Tom, that are to blame? You personally,
yeah.
or
So
is it the marketer? Who is
yes, I don't know where you can really place that blame, but you're correct. True artificial intelligence is basically AI. So what we're seeing more is machine learning, and that can take numerous forms. Whether it's NLP, natural language processing, or whether it's training text or images. I mean, it's that is more machine learning. But true artificial intelligence, I've always seen that as AGI. That's correct. Umbrella online has been kind of coined as kind of this umbrella over everything. So
I cannot think of another example where things got broader over time versus more specific. So the example I'm going to use here though is like Eskimos having 26 words for snow. It's over time Eskimos were like, we're going to start identifying this snow as whatever, snow 1, snow 2, snow 3, snow white, right? But here with AI, we're like, you know what? We used to have all these like um, you know, different machine learnings, NLP, NLG, like visual stuff. And now we're just going to go, there's one word for snow. It's rather frustrating. So I'm just trying to get to the bottom of it. All right. Well, now we can get back on track. So did you want to go towards like how they're applying it to like how it's changed their business then? Because you started to go there, but
He started to go there too. I mean, feel free to expand a little more on some of those AI applications that you guys are tapping into. I did want to ask you this. It's not totally related, but I didn't want to forget. Is it seems with you guys, as you said, have been around 12 years, really have a strong foothold in multifamily. There's a couple of other, I'll call them household names, but competitors of yours. And I'm just wondering at this point, do you have a bead on market share, like for 360 tours, or virtual tours? It seems to me, David hasn't heard me say this in a little bit, but table stakes at this point, if you're, going to put up a website and market something, you better have a virtual tour. But where are we right now? Is it 20% of, and maybe we need to get specific about the type of asset here, because I understand that, some classes, some genres of multifamily probably don't have as much penetration because they don't necessarily have the budget. Uh, but can you frame that or size that at all for us, Tom, or is that something we need to save for Leasac, given that he's the sales guy?
Yeah, that's something we probably need to save for my marketing team. I'm sure they can kind of get you the exact numbers there. What I can say though is, we're definitely leaders in the space. I mean, we've been at this for about 11 years, and we've we're one of the first virtual tour platforms out there. We actually existed before Matterport. You mentioned Matterport. Matterport I see as more kind of like a cookie cutter, one size fits all for everybody. We've been kind of hyper focused on multifamily. We found our niche there, and we really built our solution to kind of serve multifamily. And another area where we kind of differ from some of our other competitors is that we actually built our solution from the ground up. We're not using some third-party libraries, just like Matterport and just like Google Street View. We built out our own custom viewer from the ground up using WebGL and all these different technologies. So what that really means at the end of the day, just to kind of distill for everybody, is that we can do a lot with our virtual tour platform, and we've been doing a lot. Whether that is some of the AI that I could talk about, how we're doing with automations, like auto building virtual tours, to even just being able to create just these enhanced walking experiences similar to Matterport or to Google, where you kind of transition through the scenes. So that's the way we kind of differentiate ourselves. But within multifamily, without giving you exact numbers, we're definitely the leader in the space, just because we've been in this market for so long, and that's where we found our home, as multifamily.
And what's kept you guys focused? Like, I know that you sort of described at the beginning of this that you found your footing most when you got into multifamily, but I know obviously senior living, student housing, that type of thing. But I'm sure you guys have gotten opportunities, like you said, some in hospitality at the beginning. So what's kept you focused on multifamily, and what would it take, I guess, to get you guys out of this and like start taking on other markets?
Yeah. Well, to be clear, we still do cater to other industries. So we still do cater to healthcare, to hospitality. One of the reasons that really drew us to multifamily is just like even churn. So if you take a look at Matterport, for example, they do a lot of either commercial or they'll do a lot of residential. We haven't really been getting into residential because there's just a bigger churn. These virtual tours, you should, virtual tour of a home, the home sells, you no longer need a tour. Whereas within multifamily, we come in, we shoot a building, right? And this is a building that's constantly just tenants are coming in and out. And that virtual tour, we got virtual tours have been around since, for 9 years, 10 years. They're still up. So so that was one of the draws really into multifamily. And it's just a great industry to be in. So.
Yeah, no, we've decided to focus on the niche ourselves. I was just wondering, like, it's rare that companies get to the expertise that you guys have, and then they don't start trying to expand into other markets. I hear you that you do some in other markets, but to me, it seems clear that you guys put the majority of your focus on multifamily, which is a blessing for us. Like when I go through it, I'm like, I don't know, like we might have 1.5 or 2% of the market, so there's way more to go. So why distract ourselves with like anyone else? Or any other industry. But I know if we ever raised money, then they, I could see those folks being like, well, that's cool, but go ahead and do everything. Which, it's just maybe it's just the difference between bootstrapped companies versus companies that raise. So just curious.
There's still a lot of white space for us in multifamily, and so we still got a lot of growth opportunity, and that's why it's been our focus. But again, it's not the only industry we're in. We do also senior living, commercial real estate, hospitality. The one thing we've kind of stayed clear of is residential, although with the launch of our TourBuilder Go app and all the AI and things that we put into place where it's really kind of hands off, we've been looking at also releasing that to residential as well. So,
well, let's go there real quick about the different types of TourBuilder. Why do you have these different products now versus having one? And then let's go up to like 30,000. Let's go to space and start talking about like when's whatever AI going to take over? When can I sit back and go back to college for leisure studies? All right, so you guys started with like Panoskin, which became TourBuilder, but now you have I think like 3 different types of tour apps. So what was the cause of having multiple SKUs now?
Yeah, so we have two products, two core products. One is called TourBuilder Pro, which I like for when I think of pro, I like to think of property, and I also like to think of professional photographer. So that's where we take one of our 40,000 photographers, and they get deployed to your property, and they shoot all the common amenities. So they'll come in, they'll do the clubhouse, the entry, they'll do some model units, the pool area, fitness center. And they'll use a DSLR camera. They'll shoot a bunch of photos. Those photos get processed through our system. They get stitched, HDR bracketed. And you get a very high quality photo. It's high megapixel count. Dynamic range is amazing. You get a high quality photo. And these are tours that typically our clients then not only want to put on their website, syndicate it out to different ILSs and on Google Maps, but it's something they use in a lot of their marketing, right? TourBuilder Go. What that is it's a slightly different solution. Going back to my example of, hey, I wish I saw a virtual tour of this unit. If you got a property about 400 units, it doesn't make sense just to be sending out a professional DSLR photographer to every one of those units, right? As they become available to shoot it. It just wouldn't make sense. So what we did is we created a mobile app called TourBuilder Go. That really anybody can kind of download and use. And we built it with a kit. So it's got a kit where it's got like a 360 camera. You mount your phone to it. And it is super easy to use. And what I mean by super easy to use is like our ultimate litmus test was I gave it to Tom Leasing. I'm like, go shoot a virtual tour. And I can say that because he's my best friend.
That is a great ultimate litmus test.
That was the ultimate litmus test. And he was able to do it. So we were like, great, this is the one we put out. But it's super easy, guys. There's just a big giant photo button on it. You click that button, it snaps the 360 photo, and then you take the tripod, you move it to the next area, click the button, snaps the 360 photo. Super, super easy. The magic really happens on our back end. I mentioned those 200 million scenes that we published up to Google Maps. We've been building out AI algorithms on the background that not only stitch and auto enhance these images, but they also automatically build out virtual tours. So we'll take all this content that you've captured and it goes up into our cloud, and our cloud basically just processes all this information and it adds arrows where they need to, transitions where it needs to. It auto, enhances some of the scenes as well. And that's TourBuilder Go. So basically it allows anybody to shoot a virtual tour. Now, that being said, we do offer 2 options with TourBuilder Go. We still have that network of 40,000 photographers. So for properties that really want to be hands off, we do have a solution where we could still deploy that photographer, but now instead of coming in with a DSLR and snapping multiple photos for each scene, they're coming in with this kit and they're out in like 15 minutes. So that is still an option. That tends to work very well for lease ups. This is a brand new property and all the units or most units are vacant. Us sending one of our guys out there is the quickest way to map out your entire portfolio. But we've also seen this work for property managers because what happens is typically they see these photographers come and they'll see them, how they shoot it. They'll follow them for like the first units. They'll see how easy it is. And then what ends up happening is a lot of these property managers, they want to end up doing it themselves. And where we've seen it work is when they make it part of the punch list. Someone moves out, maintenance comes in, they paint the unit. And then the next thing is just, hey, take my TourBuilder Go kit, walk into the unit, just click a few buttons. That thing goes up into the cloud and, it builds a virtual tour for me that now will go on my website, on my different ILSs. I can share with tenants when they come to the leasing center. I can follow up with these virtual tours and email after they visited. It just opens up a lot more opportunities. So,
I've seen some of you shared with us some of your like technology as far as like how it's made like blurry images sharp and making them look good and stuff. So would I really be able to tell the difference between sending out this DSLR photographer versus like the Go app, or how close are they at this point? And is there a point where they'll basically convert?
So we haven't fully released yet this auto image enhancement, where it's not at DSLR quality yet, but we are working towards it. And there's a dramatic difference though. When we run it through our pipeline, just the amount of just image quality enhancement, dynamic range, things like that we're able to get out of this pipeline is amazing, and it's certainly good enough for unit level tours. So it's and again, I know this is a podcast, but I do have an example here that I can kind of just show you guys really quickly, where I don't know if you can kind of see here, but if you take a look at this left image over here, like these macaroons, I keep forgetting what these are called, these little cookies. Macaroons, there you go.
That's how you know Rhea is wealthy, because he knows what a macaroon is.
Or the $3 that have a sweet teeth.
But see, so this is an example, like a live example that we ran through a pipeline. So you can see they're very pixelated. Also, this chair, and then the image on the right. If you take a look at the chair and then just the macaroons, like the kind of the enhancement and quality there that was done. So obviously, bringing back a lot of that quality. And this is, by the way, zoomed in on the image. So same thing with this one over here. You can really kind of see it in the floorboards, right? These are very blurry here. Run it through our network, and it looks a lot more crisp. With the wine room over here. So effectively, still not, it's not going to be like if you have a Canon R5 with, 45 megapixel camera, you snap 6 photos, you get like a 100 megapixel image. Like, it's still not there yet, but it's a dramatic difference for the web, for unit level tours. It is night and day what we're able to do. And really where it starts to shine too is with low light. You got rooms where maybe the lighting's not too good, and you run it through our system, it does enhance that as well. So, we're excited. We're excited to kind of get that out and get that released.
Yeah, I think like me, back to, I think I said earlier that I'm not great with like imagery. I'm just like, looks good, right? Versus not. So I don't know, like the image on the right that's been enhanced. I don't think I could tell that, like, if you took that with a DSLR, I don't think I would think it was necessarily better one versus the other. So at what point is this almost like innovator's dilemma in a way, like where at some point your enhancement is going to get so good you cannibalize the business of like sending out, I guess, the professionals, or like using the higher end equipment?
Well, yeah. So, eventually, for for our scale, we're, full transparency as a company, we are trying to automate, a lot, right? As much just as any company, right? That's one area where we think we can automate a little bit more, in the sense of, rather than now than using your DSLR, go out there with our one-shot camera so you can shoot more units, right? You still need to send someone out there, right, to capture the space. But now we're able to capture more spaces quicker, right? So it helps us scale out. So, yeah. So I wouldn't really cannibalize, it's just more enhance effectively.
Sure. I guess earlier you had mentioned that even with the Go app, someone may want it done for them, and so I'm trying in that scenario. I'm trying to think, why would I not choose someone to do it for me and use the Go, because I'm guessing it's a little bit more affordable because they don't have to have as high end of equipment. So do I have that wrong? Like, or at some point you wouldn't really be able to tell the difference?
Yeah, so I guess really, the main reason why my folks may not want to shoot it themselves, if I'm understanding your question properly, like on-site staff, is just bandwidth. A lot of folks, maybe they feel like maybe don't have the bandwidth to be doing it. And again, where I really think us sending someone out makes sense is if it's a lease up, right? Because we have professionals that do this day in, day out. So, if you're trying to shoot the entire property yourself for a lease up, it could take you some time. But if you deploy one of our photographers out there in the lease up situation, we can come in there within a few days, shoot your entire building. So, but we've been seeing a mix, right? We offer both options. To property managers and properties that want to save a little bit and they want to be more hands-on. We've got our TourBuilder Go. They got the kit. They could use it. They could do it themselves. They could share the kit between properties. They got multiple properties. For folks that don't have the bandwidth, or maybe they're not a lease up and you only have a few units kind of popping up here and there. Maybe they, maybe, or they are a lease up. I'm sorry, they are a lease up, not just having a few units pop up here and there, and they want that professional photographer. We have that option as well.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, I have a slight off-topic question. Well, I guess it kind of fits in here, and then we can go to our 30,000 foot unless you have something to read. But it's I would okay. One of the things I love to do when we travel, I don't know if how much I've told you this, Reed, but what I love about going and staying in a hotel is that Shark Tank is going to be playing. I just know that like I can get there after we finish networking. I can throw on Shark Tank. It brings me joy because we don't have cable. But anyway, so
you guys gonna make me an offer? Is that what this is?
no. But I remember one Shark Tank that I saw, I don't know, on one of my recent trips, and they were showing a mirror. And the mirror was to be sold to like the Gap and H&M and whatever. And the mirror was designed in a way, kind of like the reverse of a funhouse mirror, where it would just make you look a little trimmer. Just a little, you just look a little bit nicer than than a standard mirror. And they're like, wouldn't this be great in an H&M? Because like now you're like, man, I look badass in these pants. I'm definitely gonna get me a set.
You'd sell a lot more product, but you'd have a lot more refunds coming.
maybe. So where I'm going with that is same on the image enhancement. It's kind of like Instagram when someone puts a nice filter on and you're like, that's not real life. I'm wondering, Tom, and I'm read your feedback too, but I see a world where someone takes I already struggle with this when we're touring houses because we're thinking about like moving. And when we tour a house, I'm like, this does not look like the photos I saw. And I'm disappointed, but yet it's a real photo. It just, they've done something to make it look nicer than reality. What's the line for both of you guys? Like, at what point is it like, man, this is a skinny mirror versus the fat mirror? And just for the just to seal the deal on the Shark Tank, the sharks did not like it, which I was surprised by. They were like, no way, can't. And I think maybe it's an image thing. Like they don't want to be caught investing in a company that's showing
distorting,
manipulating reality.
reality.
But I'm like, it's also like if it makes you feel good, like I was like, maybe I'll get one for my house, like just so I can feel good when I walk out the door.
I still think they'd have more returns than they would an incremental lift on the product, but it's an interesting thing. Yeah,
I'll still get it from my bedroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to let you answer that, Tom, and I'll try to answer it, but I'm just going to piggyback. And it was more specific. It's funny that David asked that because I did have that as one of my, I'll call it tertiary questions for you today. Was how do you guys account for, I don't know, the warped perspective sometimes that you can get on these 360 tours. I don't know how much you've even had to like, I don't know, engineer for that or think about that, but I've noticed that myself and in this industry that you will look at sometimes these tours and it just doesn't seem like they're fully capturing like or appropriately capturing perspective where it's like, oh, that looks like a pretty good sized living room, and it's not. And then, you get there and it's like, wow, this thing's half the size I thought it was. So I don't know if that's something that you guys had to confront earlier in the early days, or if you still bump into that, but it is kind of what David's getting at. It's like, at what point is this not, I don't want to call it an ethical thing, but just where you deal with some blowback because it does happen a lot with, I feel like online technology when it comes to what does my couch look like in that room?
Yeah. So kind of two questions there, right? So to answer David's question first, with our AI and our AI enhancement of these images, it's not, so it's important to distinguish between like generative AI. So we're not creating things that aren't already there. What we're training it to do is just to enhance it as if it was taken with a higher quality camera, right? So again, like image pixels that were lost, right, due to lower resolution, trying to bring that back. Dynamic range or low light situations, like these 360 cameras that you use have smaller light sensors. You've got a DSLR camera, you've got a bigger light sensor on there, right? So trying to really kind of pull back from that. We're not trying to fool people into thinking the space looks differently. What we're really trying to do is just kind of bring back some of the image quality that was lost by using a product that lets you snap photos quicker, right? So that's kind of our end goal, right? With that, to Reid, to kind of get to your point of just like vantage points and how things kind of look differently within 360s. So really that kind of also comes down to how the tour was shot, right? So, and the photographers that we deploy now to our multifamily properties, and might be one of the reasons why you would want one of our photographers to come out there. Depending on where you place that tripod, where you're taking that photo, you can get those distortions, right? So it's important to know what you're doing, right? To know where to place the tripod, so the camera's in the correct position. Well, there's also stuff that we do on the software side. Like I mentioned, we built our own virtual tour viewer, right? So we built based out our own WebGL shaders, and we project things onto your browser. So we do some stuff to kind of take care of warping. Where warping by me more like squiggly lines. Like some of the viewers that you see out there that are open source, if you're looking at like the 360 images, like the lines don't look flat, like straight. So there's stuff that we also do in the technology. So I don't know if that kind of answers your question, but yeah.
I mean, it does, but I still think like back to these single family homes. It's like, oh yeah, the house would look like this if you had like 4 light boxes in a spot. I'm like, that's cool. I'm not going to live with multiple light boxes in this room. So like, give me. So I just think it's for me fascinating to think about that. My parents just put their house up for sale, and they had built this like little fort in the attic for
I
my
know the fort.
grandkids.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
You've done Zoom calls from that fort.
Exactly. And in person, you're like, this ain't so cool. Maybe for a kid, but not for me to take my Zoom call. But on the photos online, it looks badass. And I'm like, it's just like, someone would show up excited for this fort, and then they'd be like, you know what, there's some bugs in here, and it's a little more cramped and stuffy than I thought. So anyways, that's just my point, Tom.
Yeah.
Luckily we don't have to face it.
I will say though, guys, so with this image enhancement that we're going to be releasing, we're not going to have it on default for everything. So this will be definitely very much an active thing. So it'll be up to the property to decide, do we want to just use the raw quality coming out of these cameras, raw lighting situations, or do we want to enhance them? We're not going to make that decision for our properties. They'll be able to make that decision on their own. It will be a setting within the mobile app, whether you want that enhancement occurring or not. So,
well, I would be for it, Tom. Just it may sound like I'm challenging. That's not true. I just am like asking the question because sort of like the Instagram age. But so didn't want you thinking I wasn't into it. I think it's awesome. Like, and this is a great use of ML.
Well, I have two more questions before we wrap up, and that should leave at least a few minutes for, I guess, the 30,000 foot if we still want to go there. But you mentioned integrations at some point, and it may have been before we actually started recording. But I'm wondering what that does look like for you guys. And I had a more of a specific use case that may not exist today, but perhaps you guys are working on or you're anticipating, Tom, from an engineering standpoint. But with the we're past Advent, with the I'll say bot boom in multifamily, all the AI leasing agents, and now we're hearing more about the end-to-end, AI kind of support that we're the industry's headed towards. Are we already at a point where if I'm watching a virtual tour that triggers one of these bots to kind of intercept? Because you mentioned like it wasn't a great experience for you after you left. You got the email and a thank you and whatnot, but it didn't really uh, either it wasn't timely enough or it wasn't relevant or it could have been more relevant with a 360 tour. But where I'm going is thinking through the experience, no better time, right, than that bot potentially to intercept a user on the site than when they're looking at a virtual tour. Very subtle, but it's like, hey, I noticed you're watching this virtual tour. Is there anything I can do to help, answer any questions that you might have? For example, around David and I's question around perspective, like, the size of these units, et cetera. So it just seems like such a great natural opportunity or moment that these bots could integrate with your virtual tours.
Yeah, no, that definitely is. But to be fully transparent, Reid, that's not something that we are doing yet. Although I think that's a fantastic idea and something we could discuss with our partners. If it comes to these AI bots and just AI tools out there that are available, where the integrations that we have done is if you're already engaged in talking to the bot and you've got a virtual tour of your property, it will use it as its disposal, right? So you can be talking to the bot, and then when need be, you can serve up that virtual tour for you. So we've done that level of integration. Some other integrations that we've done is more like around email drip campaigns, right? So obviously a lot of these there's a lot of automations out there that's emails, things like that. So we're really our TourBuilder clips, which is another thing we really kind of talk about, but TourBuilder clips are like these automated video shorts and automated GIFs that we generate automatically from our virtual tours. Those can get included directly within the email that gets sent out. And that then when the prospect gets, this email from one of the drip campaigns, they have an actual visual just screaming at them in their face of the unit they just saw or the property they just saw. And so they got a visual with that email. And if they click that, they could then explore a virtual tour. So those are some of the things that we've been doing. But I do agree, having kind of like a two-way integration like that, where we can kind of communicate back to the chatbot, that definitely sounds like something that would be
It's super cool if they, just could recognize, oh, they're in the kitchen right now in their virtual tour, and they seem to be kind of looking around and spending more time there. Boom, trigger the chat bot to say something or ask a question about the kitchen. So the other question was more about unit level tours versus the community, or I'll say the property and then the community. So what I mean by that is, I feel like a lot of people want to understand more, and you see it with the neighborhood content pages, and like, now more and more websites are trying to, I think, express what it feels like to live in that area, not just that unit. So I'm wondering, for you guys, has that been a part of your own product discovery, development, or consideration? I don't know if already you do full comprehensive, property tours, but this would potentially, I'm saying, might even be interesting to do a walk around the neighborhood, right? And you can get at a lot of this, I know, with Google Maps and just like do that yourself. But it just seems like more and more what we hear from marketers is we're trying to really market the full community, the experience, not just the unit, not just the amenities, or the pool, but the whole thing. So I didn't know if that is just too broad, too much to even think about, or if that's something that you guys have kicked around.
Yeah, well, I think you got some interesting ideas there. So so not something we're doing yet. What I can tell you, what we are doing is, with our virtual tours, in our new templates, because we're releasing new templates, we do show folks what's nearby, right? So we have like a little button, you can click it, and it shows you like your property on a map, and then like what's nearby, like gas stations, stores, schools, things like that. But we also have virtual tours through our network of 40,000 photographers of a lot of these spaces that we've published up to Google Maps, right? So definitely also adding a button there, next to the school or the shopping center that we're recommending that says View Virtual Tour. You click it, it takes you up to Google Maps to then explore that space that we shot previously with one of our photographers. I think it's certainly a fantastic idea. I'm gonna have to talk to my product team about that, because it's certainly something we could do. But
cool.
What I have two questions, Tom. I know we're keeping you long here, but there's I feel like I'm learning a lot with this conversation. One is, when we also first got into this space, I feel like I was having all kinds of clients talk to me about their like VR headset virtual tour at the leasing office or even remotely, and it just felt like that was really getting pushed. And now, like whatever, since 10 years ago, you've had like Meta spend like $11 billion a year or something to like get the Oculus and whatever off the ground. Yet I'm not hearing any marketers talk about, hey, we're setting up these like, these headset virtual tours at the property. So I'm curious at where you think that has gone. And then the follow up to that would be, any hot takes you have. I guess now I'm going to tie it into like AI in the future for, let's say, the next 10 years, or because there's some people that think that AI is going to take over, like as you were saying, like in the next, we're going to have self driving cars in a year, and then there's other people that are, as you said, with AGI, where it's like we're 50 years out. So any like hot or radical takes you have on that front?
Sure. Yeah. So I guess your first question, and that was, I'm sorry, if you can repeat the first question.
Why am I not hearing about headsets anymore? And meaning in multifamily, because I feel like that was where I was hearing of any industry. I was hearing, oh, you have this like the leasing office, they go there and they take, or, you're going to be able to do it remotely at home. And as I said, you guys passing around those cardboard Google Box or Google Cardboard, and I don't hear about that anymore.
Yeah. So we've always kind of seen like, especially initially when we were handing out those cardboards and like headsets, we've always kind of seen that as more of kind of like a gimmick almost. Like it's cool for some cool marketing to hand out those cardboards. Where we've really seen uses for it is when we were doing new developments, right, for properties. And they would do lease ups and they had basically these VR headsets. We also did something with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This was years ago when they were renovating their stadium. They created this whole thing called the Raymond James Experience. They had all their fans come out, and we created these virtual tours, and they had like these headsets they put on, and they could actually see a virtual tour rendering of what that space was going to look like. So that was cool. We've done some things like that, right? But if you're not talking about the masses, right, really our focus has been making sure our virtual tours work on just devices that everybody has, right? And that, that's your cell phone, right? Making sure it works seamlessly on your cell phone, on your desktop computer. That has been our core focus. Are there folks out there using VR? I think more so for gaming, right? So you get a lot of the younger generations that use it for gaming, things like that. But for kind of day to day, you're not getting that mass adoption yet. So unless you're doing like a lease up or something like we did with the Raymond James Experience, I think the most value you're going to get from our tours is being up on Google Maps, being up on all these iOSs, working on your phone and working on your desktop computer.
I hear you. I think that's the smart move from a business perspective. I just thought it was interesting because multifamily is typically are laggards when it comes to adopting new technology. And a decade ago, I felt like they were on the forefront of adopting VR for like doing tours and such. And now I don't hear them talking about it. So I just thought let's take a win. Let's put something in the win column for multifamily being on the forefront of something before others. Yet I don't hear about it anymore. So that's why I was bringing it up. So quickly, any radical or hot takes?
The question is were they laggards with sign spinning? Or were they on the forefront?
They are.
We'd have to trace that back. We'd have to trace.
They're hoping that sticks around. They're like, there's going to be a resurgent, and we better lock these spinners in the contracts multi-year.
We brought this to market, and it's coming back. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
I guess anything radical, nothing really. I think with machine learning, again, it's very you're teaching a computer to do something very specific purpose, right? So in our examples, it was image enhancement, also auto building of tours. We're also doing some stuff for auto creating floor plans, right? So it's very specific things, and I think that's where a lot of machine learning is heading right now, right? So and you see that again with like video recommendations when you're on YouTube. You see that within your own cell phone, you're typing a text message in your cell phone, and it's starting to give you like text patterns, it's recommendations, right? That's ML working in the background. You're going to see a lot more of that in your daily lives, just kind of enhancing our lives and making our lives easier, removing a lot of the drudgery. So I think you're going to see a lot of that over the next few years. This whole like discussion on AGI, like artificial general intelligence, like Elon Musk talks about it a little bit, right? How we got to be careful there. And really the reason is because, if you create these sentient beings that they're not just taught to do one thing, it's just a general intelligence. Like you're basically building a superhuman, right? At what point does it decide that humans don't need to be in the equation? And you start thinking to yourself, well, it's just a computer. Like, how could it ever do that, right? And this is me now going off on like the science fiction realm. Like, well, one way is you start thinking about manipulations, deep fakes. You guys have seen deep fakes. So again, basically, if they have access to the media, lots of deep fakes going out there, causing people to kind of just pit up against each other. And then obviously, whatever you give that AI access to, right? You don't want to give it access to nuclear arsenals, right? So if it can somehow manipulate someone to give them access to, or the right person to give them access to that, that's where like you start thinking about like nightmare scenarios, right? Or if you start putting it into like weaponry, right? Like autonomous soldiers, things like that, right? It's just, that's where you start like playing with fire. And that's where I think a lot of people's minds go. But most of AI, and we call this AI, most of machine learning that we're seeing right now is very confined. It's trained to do one thing and to do that very well, right? And I think you're going to see a lot more of that. And it's not something to be scared of; it's something to embrace, right? And I think, a lot of folks too are scared of losing their jobs, things like that. And, it's true, there are jobs out there that it'll probably replace, but those are more jobs that are just very just kind of mundane, a lot of just same repetitive data entry. But for like a lot of professionals, right, this is meant to kind of enhance, make you more productive and really kind of focus more on like, human insight, like emotional intelligence, things like that, right? So, why not have an AI assistant in your email box, for example, when you're typing up a response, rather than spending 20 minutes typing up the perfect paragraph, it'll give you some suggestions. And as you're typing, maybe autocorrect your grammar, things like that, just makes you more efficient, right? So you can spend time on things you really want to be spending time on. So I think you'll see a lot more of that.
Well, in the next decade, let me try asking it this way. Which of our two companies should be more concerned? So we mostly run, I mean, a good portion of our business anyways is running like Google campaigns, Facebook campaigns and the like. Should we be running scared, or you guys who, are out there like doing virtual tours and that type of thing?
Well, no, I don't think anybody should be scared. I think everybody needs to adapt. And the one thing I didn't show is this, right? So let me just show this example. So AI is not this all-knowing, all-perfect thing, right? So as you can kind of see this image here, uh, an AI algorithm is trained to identify basically dogs, right? And you can see here it thinks this dog is a bagel, right? So AI is not perfect. You're always going to need that kind of human element there. Even with our virtual tours, right? We're doing this automation. We have this automated builder, right? We still have a QA department because we don't want to put garbage out there. We take our clients' tours seriously. Our enterprise clients, because they entrust us to build them, great virtual tours. So we're using AI to kind of automate, scale, do more stuff quicker, but we still have humans kind of going in there and checking, right? And doing some reinforcement learning and checking and making sure that we're putting out good stuff, right? Because you do get, AI again is not perfect. And you do get also things called, you get biases as well, because like depending on the data that you've trained your AI on, like you get certain biases. We also get things called hallucinations. So I don't think we're ever going to get to a point where you'll completely remove the human element. Again, I'm kind of more of a glass is half full type of guy. I think this is something that we could literally use to kind of enhance our businesses, enhance our roles in the space. And just we just all have to kind of just adjust with it. That's all. So,
Reid, when he showed us this image before we started, did you immediately know the dachshund and the bagel?
I did.
Oh, okay. It's just me. When he first showed this, I thought he was like, when I'm just being honest here, I thought the dachshund was the poop emoji. And I was like, oh, he's showing us a pile of crap against a bagel. And it wasn't until Tom was like, yeah, you have a dog over here. That I was like, oh, shoot, that's not a pile of crap. That's actually a dachshund. So I'm just saying, I'm not perfect either.
I see now the poop emoji. Thank you for that. Yeah. Now there's a third option here.
All right, Tom. Oh, while we get out of here, give me your best Leasing story. You've known him for decades now.
Oh God, really
embarrass the man. Let's see if you got it this far in the episode.
I guess the story. I haven't really told anybody this. It's just how we met. So everyone knows him as like this, just really loud and just just a guy you want to be around. Funny guy, right? Someone when I see at the bar, like he's a cool guy, but he's also got a big heart. So like a lot of people don't know this story about him. But when him and I met, it was we were around 6 years old. We were playing basketball in the alley, in the Chicago alley. And then that basketball game turned into dodgeball. And long story short, I went to go kick one of the balls, and like my shoe like fell off my foot because I was notorious for walking around without tying my shoelaces. And it fell off my foot, and it just flew into the air and like landed on top of a garage. And I freaked out. Being 6 years old, like my mom's gonna kill me. I just lost one of my shoes for school. So I climbed up on one of the garbage cans to kind of get the shoe from the top of the garage. And that garbage can was empty and it just kind of slid out. And then I basically just got caught on top of this fence and I was hanging there for my head. And like my pants tore. And all these kids that I just met, because I just moved there, they were like sitting there like laughing at me. And he was the one kid that just walked up, lifted me up, helped me out. And that's kind of where our friendship started. So
that's awesome.
Wow. And I had the opposite. He gave me a super wedgie the first time I met the man, and here he is helping Tom. So, wow, that's awesome. That's a great story. It does show he has a big heart. Yeah, it's hard to it's like who you are as a kid is really who you are deep down inside. So that's touching. All right, Tom. Well, thank you. We appreciate your time today and being willing to roll with us. It's a great conversation.
Yeah.